Isang malaya at mapagpalayang umaga sa ating lahat. Good morning, everyone. And on behalf of the Asian Institute of Management, Dr. Andrew L. Tan, Center for Tourism, the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, and the Philippine Apex Studies Center Network, I warmly welcome you all to today's forum. She creates, she connects, reimagining women's empowerment in the tourism and creative industries. I am Joseph Ronald Reyes from the Department of Trade and Industry, Bureau of Small and Medium Enterprise Development, and I will be your host for this webinar. And now, as we celebrate National Women's Month, today's event brings together leaders, practitioners, and stakeholders to explore how women continue to shape and transform the tourism and creative sectors. Across the Asia Pacific and here in the Philippines, women have long been at the heart of cultural preservation, storytelling, and innovation. Yet, as highlighted in our storytelling, the concept note, structural barriers still limit their access, visibility, and opportunities. And so this webinar aims to move beyond recognition toward actionable dialogue, focusing on digitalization, cultural preservation, and inclusive growth. We are also welcoming participants joining us via Zoom and Facebook Live. Thank you for being part of this important conversation. Also, allow me to greet distinguished participants joining us via Zoom. And so we have Jerilyn Medalla, also Ms. Jerilyn Medalla. Hello, good morning, ma'am. Also, we have, our participants from the Asian Institute of Management. Also, so thank you for joining us. For those joining us via Zoom and Facebook, we will be providing e-certificates. Zoom participants may receive their e-certificates upon completion of the feedback survey form. Yes, kailangan po nating sagutan natin yan. And meanwhile, Facebook Live viewers can earn theirs by completing a short pop quiz. You have heard it right, short pop quiz, pero kayang-kaya nyo yan. The links to both will be shared at the end of the program. So we encourage you to stay with us until the conclusion. And now, to formally open our program, may I invite Mr. BRYAN GERARD V. CABRERA, Executive Managing Director for Finance and Treasury of the AIM Scientific Research Foundation, Incorporated, to deliver his opening remarks. Sir BRYAN, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Joseph. Distinguished President of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, Dr. Philip Arnold P. Tuaño, Quezon City Mayor Honorable Joy Belmonte, our esteemed panelists and partners from the government and industry, colleagues from PIDS and the AIM Tourism Center, and all our participants joining us via Zoom and Facebook Live, good morning. So today's forum takes place in March, a month dedicated to recognizing the achievements, leadership, and enduring contributions of women across every sphere of society. But truth to be told, this ought to extend far beyond this single month. Throughout the history, we have seen women not only as participants in development, but rather are architects of it. They shape institutions, sustain communities, and drive innovation in ways that are often under-recognized, yet foundational to economic and social transformation. Additionally, just last month, the country observed the National Arts Month, a celebration of creativity, heritage, and cultural expression. The arts are not peripheral to development. They are central to how societies narrate their identity and imagine their future and generate value, as seen in our thriving Philippine creative industry. Placing these two observances side by side, Arts Month and Women's Month, we see more than a calendar sequence. We see an intersection a convergence of gender, culture, and industry. And today, with your presence, our friends from the creative industries and women leaders stand as a testament. She creates, she connects, stands at this intersection. Across the Philippines and the wider Asia Pacific, women have long sustained culture and shaped tourism as artisans, entrepreneurs, storytellers, and community leaders. While creative industries and tourism increasingly converge in shaping destination narratives and value chains, women who anchor these sectors continue to face structural barriers in access to capital, digital resources, recognition, and policy support. Today's forum invites us to move beyond celebration toward critical reflection and practical engagement. We are here not only to recognize women's contributions, but to examine the systems within which they operate and develop strategies on how we can make the system work better for women and the broader tourism and creative industries. On behalf of the Asian Institute of Management, we would like to extend our sincerest gratitude to the Philippine Institute for Development for partnering with us in translating this vision into reality, a working dialogue and design space for progress. It has always been a delight to work with your team in initiatives like this. To conclude, at the Asian Institute of Management, and particularly through the Dr. Andrew L. Tan Center for Tourism, we remain committed to creating platforms where women can create and connect. Create change, create narratives, create value, connect across sectors, across institutions, across digital and physical spaces, because we believe that empowerment is not a slogan, it is a structure. It requires ecosystems that enable women not merely to participate, but to lead, inspire, and transform industries from within. Once again, thank you and welcome to She Creates, She Connects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Brian, for your inspiring message. And now we move to our keynote address from a leader who has consistently championed inclusive development and women's empowerment. Please join me in welcoming Honorable Mayor Joy Belmonte of Quezon City through a recorded message.
My warmest greetings to the organizers and participants of the forum She Creates, She Connects, Reimagining Women's Empowerment in the Tourism and Creative Industries. I extend my warm greetings to all women whose strength, creativity, and leadership continue to shape our society. Happy Women's Month to us. Allow me to express my sincere appreciation to the Asian Institute of Management, Dr. Andrew L. Tan Center for Tourism, and the Philippine Apex Study Center Network for bringing together this meaningful initiative. This forum highlights an important reality that women are not only participants but leaders, innovators, and change makers in the tourism and creative industries. Across communities, women continue to redefine leadership by embracing digitalization, fostering innovation, and championing inclusive growth. Their contributions are shaping industries that are economically dynamic, culturally enriching, and socially responsive. Here in Quezon City, we recognize the value of empowering women as key drivers of development. When women are given equal opportunities to create, connect, and lead, entire communities can thrive. That is why our local government continues to invest in initiatives that support the growth of the creative and tourism sectors. With Quezon City named as UNESCO's Creative City of Film and Pilot Media and Information Literacy City, we are aiming to become the country's premier destination for film and audiovisual production. Through supportive policies, infrastructure, and incentives, we are creating an environment where creatives, including many talented women, can bring their stories to life. We also continue to strengthen our cultural and historical tourism through sites such as the Tandang Sora Museum, which honors Melchora Aquino, one of the country's iconic women in history. By preserving and promoting spaces like this, We ensure that the legacy of women's courage, leadership, and patriotism continues to inspire future generations. We are also proud of our Maki Fiesta, a vibrant celebration of our local creative industries. This brings together artists, media practitioners, and innovators while providing intentional spaces to highlight and uplift women from diverse industries, enabling them to showcase their work, exchange ideas, and build meaningful collaboration. Our vision is clear: to build a city where creativity flourishes, tourism is inclusive and sustainable, and women are at the forefront of transformation. We recognize that strong policies must be grounded on research, dialogue, and collaboration, making gatherings like this even more valuable. The insights from your discussions today will play an important role in shaping policies that expand economic opportunities and strengthen women's participation in these industries. By bringing together policymakers, practitioners, and researchers, you are helping build a more inclusive and empowered future. Let us continue to champion spaces where women can lead, innovate, and inspire. And let us ensure that no woman is left behind in the journey toward progress. Once again, I commend the organizers for this initiative, and I wish you all a productive and meaningful discussion. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay tayong lahat.
Indeed, no woman left behind. Thank you, Mayor Joy, for that powerful and insightful message. And now just to go back to acknowledging our distinguished participants. Joining us via Zoom, we have Ms. Carmen Penalosa, Executive Director of Center for Strategic Research, Creativity, and Intellectual Property of Miriam College. We also have Ms. Telma Vecina, Executive Director of the Local Government Academy. Ms. Eileen Clemente, Chairman and President of Raha Travel Corporation. Ms. Corazon Sajones, Executive Director of Jaime V. Ongpin Foundation Incorporated. We also have Mr. Onofre Inocencio, Chairman of Unit VET. Mr. Rome Candaza, Executive Director of Albay Arts Foundation. We also have Ms. Eliza Abigail Gabor, Founder and CEO of Repurposed the Label. We also have Ms. Janet Fernando, School President of JVF Center for Technical Studies and Assessment Incorporated. Also, we have Ms. Rosemary Rafael, Chairperson and Founder of Airspeed. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat at thank you for joining us here today. So we also have over 40 Facebook viewers. We can also invite our friends to join us here. You can share our a link to our friends and office mates for them to join us here. All right. So to ground our discussion, we now proceed with our scene setting presentation, which will provide us with a broader perspective on how tourism and creative industries intersect in empowering women. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ayla Lair Gutierrez. Dr. Gutierrez is a development consultant and the OIC Executive Director of the Asian Institute of Management, Dr. Andrew L. Tan Center for Tourism. She also serves as a fellow of the Ryuichi Sasakawa Young Leaders Fellowship in Japan. She has completed her PhD degree in Asia Pacific Studies at the Ritsumeikan Asia
Hi! So, magandang umaga sa lahat. Good morning. Maayong buntag sa tanan. So I think we have our issues, but trust me, you are in good hands. I would be a credible speaker even without the introduction. So again, I would just like to say hi to the 200 plus attendees who are joining us today and counting. Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Maayong buntag. So first of all, I'd like to start my presentation by first greeting everyone, Happy Women's Month. Maligayang buwan ng kababaihan sa lahat. So just a pulse check, right? Can I just get hearts from everyone who are starting their day great because they're joining us today, this morning? There you go. So thank you very much for all the love right there. So while I'm waiting for my presentation to be shared, I would just like to get the pulse. Of course, I'm just gonna ask a question. And pwede po bang makita ang inyong sagot? So, my question is, do you think that the Filipino women of 2026 are empowered? It's a simple yes or no lang siguro po dito sa ating chat box. Right? Do you think that the Filipino women of today are empowered? Yes. Very good. I love the energy, right? So again, for those who think are unsure, right? That's also a valid answer, right? So with that, keep them coming. Yes, keep them coming. So while we are discussing this, right, allow me to give you a backdrop on why we think, right? So that's good, no? I think Miss Christina just made more of an analysis, right? It makes us question, do we just say that we are all empowered or is there more, right? So for the next few minutes that I have, I am tasked to provide a scene-setting presentation titled Tourism, Creative Industries, Women and Digital Transformation in the Philippines. So this presentation is based on a working paper. So what I will be sharing with you in the next few minutes are reflections of an ongoing research and some ideas about this topic, right? So, himayin lang natin ng konti, right? In this title, we see four key things: tourism, creative industries, women, and digital transformation. So what we can expect for the next slides that I will be presenting is that I'll talk about the intersection between tourism and creative industries, and specifically why this intersection actually matters for women, right? Sa mga kababaihan, against the backdrop of digital transformation. So maiisip natin, maybe, no, ang tourism, creative industries, itong mga words na to, in our head, parang separate conversation siya usually pinag-uusapan, right? But as we will see today in this webinar, is the fact that they're actually deeply connected. So, without further ado, allow me to begin my presentation by talking about why this conversation matters. So, we both know that in the Philippines, that tourism and the creative industries are both economically significant sectors, right? Here we see that tourism contributes substantially to national output and employment. So if we look at the numbers, we'll see that tourism contributes about 2.35 trillion pesos in terms of direct gross value added, and we could see that it's employing about 6.75 million Filipinos in the country. The same is the case when we look at the creative industry. Here we look at the industry's contribution, not just to economy, but also culturally, right? So we see that it contributes to 1.94 trillion pesos and employing about 7.51 million in the Philippines. And again, the recent passage of the Philippine Creative Industries Development Act actually signals that there's a growing institutional recognition of the sector, right? So this conversation goes beyond economic. Yes, they are both economic powerhouses, or at least powerhouses in the making, but I want the conversation to go beyond the economic value of these industries. The overlap between tourism and creative industries, as we can see in this Venn diagram, right, is actually also a space where women are especially visible. Women who work in the hospitality and food services and handicrafts and design and cultural production and even community-based enterprises. Yet their visibility, our visibility alone does not always mean that we are recognized, that we feel secure, and that we have the power to make decisions. Right? So the real issue that we're trying to uncover here is not whether women are present. Obviously, we are here. I mean, how many of the participants today are actually women, right? But the question begs to ask, what kind of involvement or participation do we have in these sectors? Are we just workers or are we owners? Are we implementers, but are we also part of the decision making, right? So here, what we're going to talk about is not just about the employment of women. Yes, it is important, but we also want to talk about topics including equity, cultural sustainability, and the future of development. So with that being said, I hope that's interesting for everyone. Now I'm going to move on to how I plan on discussing this topic, right? So ambitiously enough, I'll be talking about 6 things, but which are all interrelated to each other. The first one being the intersection between tourism and creative industry. And then I'll talk about ano ba ang role ng kababaihan sa dalawang sektor na ito. And then we'll talk about the reality of women and also what is happening alongside digitalization. And then I'll talk about the framework that I've conceptualized for this working paper. And finally, sharing with you some insights from the case studies that I've seen, and maybe looking at also the ways forward in terms of the discussion and the policies that can be inspired by it or informed by it. So moving ahead, at the core of this paper, I'll talk about the key research question that this working paper is trying to answer. And that is, how can the creative and tourism industries jointly empower women, especially in the context of digital transformation? In doing so, the paper that I'm currently working on will first explore the relationship between the two industries, again, identifying the women's involvement in it, and also mapping out saang parte ng value chain or the industry creation do they actually come into play, and anong klaseng mga issues ang kinakaharap nila. Right? So what is useful about this framing is that it doesn't assume that we feel empowered automatically when we're involved. Instead, it helps us to treat empowerment as something that needs to be examined more critically, right? So I am happy to be sharing this floor with the rest of the panelists later on to help us in answering more of these questions, right? So moving forward to my presentation, we could emphasize or see that tourism and creative industries have a symbiotic relationship. So, parang nasa science tayo, no? Symbiotic. Ano ba ibig sabihin nun? Right? So, symbiotic, no? It's a very important word because it describes the fact that both creative and tourism industries does not just coexist. They actually reinforce and depend on one another. So how is that seen, right? So here we start off with the Philippine culture, right? And seeing how it is being mirrored and expressed by the creative industry. So we see that creative industry comes in many forms. We see it coming in the form of audiovisual, digital interactive, creative services, design, publishing, performing arts, visual arts, traditional cultural expressions, and cultural sites. But the reality also is that culture is not static, right? Every single day, no, yung culture na alam natin from way before could be changed by today or tomorrow, right? It's constantly changing. And so the challenge now is, how do we translate or how do we mirror this creative industry? How do we continuously express it? And now we shift from just talking about creative industry as a mirror of culture, but also asking, how else can we explore, or how else can we express and talk about the creative industry? And this is where tourism comes into the picture. Here we see tourism as a vehicle that promotes and supports these creative expressions. Ideally, tourism is an industry, right, that brings about audiences, consumers, travelers who want to get to know more about the culture. And also, leading to all of this, I'm pretty sure you've heard of the term creative tourism, right? So this is where the idea becomes especially relevant because we see that creative tourism is not just about sightseeing, right? Creative tourism is actually about an experience-based model wherein visitors, may it be tourists, local or foreign, can actually actively participate in the consumption and learning of our culture. So meaning, we don't see visitors as just, okay, nakita ko na yan, okay na. But here we try to see how can we make them involved? How can we make them appreciate and actually experience the culture of the Philippines? So again, rather than simply observing local culture from a distance, here we see tourists being more engaged with weaving, culinary traditions, storytelling, performance, and all that stuff. So underneath all of this, right, is the reality that there's another variable coming into the picture that we cannot stop and say, okay, hindi naman to nag-exist because it really exists. And that is digitalization. Digitalization actually powers through and can accelerate this process because now, no, people don't really have to come here to enjoy tourism and the creative industry. There are many, many platforms and digital tools wherein our cultural products become more visible, become more bookable, marketable, and shareable far beyond the local area. So, in short, tourism can amplify creative work, while creative industries can deepen and differentiate tourism. That's why they have a symbiotic relationship. So, moving into that, allow me to just summarize it, right? So, what we're understanding here at this point of my presentation, I hope we're clear about the intersection of the two, wherein the creative industry serves as a cultural mirror, literally salamin of the culture of the Filipino identity. This is where local knowledge system, indigenous craftsmanship, storytelling traditions are actually presented. And here we look at tourism as a vehicle for cultural appreciation. It serves as a distribution channel for creative products and a platform for experiential participation and even a multiplier for local livelihood. So what am I driving at here? Here I'm pointing at that tourism is not merely just about consuming culture. It actually stages, circulates, and sustains culture. I mean, I'll take a pause there because then I want us to absorb the fact that tourism isn't just, again, about visiting, about making people come here. But if we see it as a vehicle that could promote not just our culture, but our creative industry, right? Then we could see how powerful both industries are in actually talking about our culture and our identity as Filipinos. So, with that being said, I'll now go into more related aspects to it. So, when we say tourism and creative industries, these terms come into mind. So, my next slide will talk about the creative tourism and the creative city. So, minsan, no, parang ang daming creative na nangyayari. Like, di na natin alam ano ba yung pinagkakaiba ng lahat ng yon, right? So, here, what I'm gonna talk about is how the creative tourism and the creative cities are actually seen as developmental strategies. So here, when we look at the model of creative tourism, again, no, we look at it as a model where visitors can participate in local creative activities and practices. On the other hand, creative cities, or the idea of it, particularly under the UNESCO framework, is where creativity is embedded into urban, economic, and social planning. So when put together, right, Mayor Joy just recently mentioned that Quezon City has recently become the film creative center of the Philippines, right? But for our information and for everyone's information, let me just remind you of how culturally rich our country is. So here we have different creative cities that have been designated by UNESCO, right? So for Baguio, for arts and for crafts and folk arts, for Cebu for design, Iloilo for gastronomy, Quezon City for film, and Dumaguete for literature. So what this showcases is that these examples show that culture and tourism are not only naturally linked, no, hindi lang siya automatic nangyayari, but they can also be strategically and intentionally linked. It's when cities and communities recognize their creative assets that they can shape tourism in ways that are more place-based, distinctive, and sustainable. So if we actually take this into account, we see that we can move away from, generic tourism models of let's build this and that. But instead, we build tourism models that build around local identity. So before I move on to my next slide, right? Yes, this is all fun. This is all nice. This is all beautiful. It reminds us of how rich and beautiful our country is, how creative we are, and how much opportunities we have in tourism. But let me just bring everyone to the ground by asking, in these strategies, who actually gets included and at what level? Right? We're trying to look at sino ba yung mga involved dito, who is actually making it happen. So which brings me to the highlight of my discussion, which is why we're here. Women at the intersection. So here in the slide, I will be highlighting the role of women. So here we could see that women make up majority of both of these sectors, or at least half of them. So let me just let that sink in. 56% of the tourism workforce are women. And 57% of workers in the creative industry are women. So numerically, right, women are highly present in both sectors. In tourism, we see women participate in the accommodation, food and beverage, souvenir, community-based, and even in the informal sector. So consciously, we see women as, kumbaga, the frontliners because women are naturally nurturing, caring. So usually we're the ones on the front line, right? On the other hand, in the creative industry, women are seen as cultural safeguards, right? So women are usually the ones who are helping preserve, even traditional songs, traditional cooking, art, and all those things. And women are deeply involved in textile, weaving traditions, artisanal productions, culinary heritage, and even performances, right? So when we look at it, this tells us something crucial, that women are not just peripheral to both tourism and cultural or creative industry. They are often at the center of it. So this entire presentation and the working paper that I am conducting makes a very sharp point that talks about or asks, that points out to the idea that visibility of women in these sectors do not automatically translate to empowerment. So moving to that further, I tried to map out the value chain to which the creative and tourism industry works, because obviously cultural production doesn't automatically mean it becomes saleable, right? There's a process that it goes through, right? So here it's stressing that out, but also what I want to emphasize with the time that I have is that here we see that women are mostly concentrated in the cultural production side and the processing and packaging, right? So if we can recall, saan usually ba nakikita ang kababaihan? So usually they're the ones creating the souvenirs, the weaves, the paintings. But do we see them in other parts? Right? So here we're asking the question, how involved really are they in aspects of brand ownership, intellectual property control, digital distribution, and investment and scaling, right? So what I'm pointing out in this slide is that this is where actually inequality becomes more pronounced. Because women may do much of the labor that creates value, but the reality is that they do not always control the assets, the platforms, the legal rights, or even the capital that determine where benefits are received. So again, the questions that we want to ask is, how do we help women move from just labor participation to asset ownership? How do we move them to having strategic control that they could actually shape value chain and not just be participants of it? So with all of these realities, I'm gonna add on a bit more spice into the mix by adding the reality that, hey, digitalization is always at play. And the reality is that, yes, digitalization is good, right? On the one hand, it could be a digital tool that's empowering. We can see that they can increase visibility, market reach. It could increase customer engagement, and they can help women sell products. But also, on the other hand, it could create new forms of exclusion wherein women have unequal access to digital literacy skills building, platform dependency, and even online exploitation. And of course, it also highlights issues in relation to skills gaps, informal operations, and difficulty accessing platform, right? Or platform financing. So again, what I'm painting here is that digitalization is not automatically democratizing. It can widen opportunities, but it can also create or deepen inequalities. So in the last 3 or 4 slides that I have, I know I've been noted that my time is up, right? I'm just going to showcase to you briefly the proposed framework of the study. So here I want to bank on the idea that we're all clear, this is just a refresher, that everything that we're looking at starts with culture, right? And that culture is expressed through the creative industry, and that tourism can become a vehicle to support that. And we see this as, not a one directional way, it actually comes in different loops, and how digitalization actually can amplify and can speed up the process, right? But what I want to emphasize here is that empowerment is, that this entire thing is actually not abstract systems. They are social systems that involve people, that involve identity, that involve political aspects and participation aspects, right? So here I definitively put in male and female models, because in the scheme of things, it's not just women who can help in this process. Men who are joining here, I'd like to applaud all the men who are joining this webinar as well, right? You are actually part of the solution as well. So going into that, I'll briefly just talk about, next slide, please. So what I will be sharing with you is that in this working paper, I tried to look at several case studies that provide the intersection between tourism and creative work. So here I tried to look at the weaving economies, the festival economies, and community-based tourism. And here I tried to ask the questions, how are they involved, who benefits most, and who remains vulnerable? And the next slide, or the last 2 slides that I have, will actually talk about some of the key findings or the factors or challenges that women experience, right? So here we see that women have issues in terms of multiple burdens. Let me just go on through this a bit, right? So when we say multiple burdens, women are usually the caretakers or the assigned caretakers and responsible homemakers. But on top of that, women are also seen as economic managers, right? And here we also see issues in terms of asset ownership, that women are still not seen as critical voices in leadership, and how they're able to participate digitally, and their exposure to informality. But with all of these things, these challenges are something that you haven't heard. Can we go back to the slide? These challenges are issues that we have heard all the time, right? But what's new that I'm pointing out here is that these challenges are not experienced equally. Meaning the women here in the urban city of Makati experiences these challenges differently from women who are from indigenous communities, from women who are informally working, who don't have contracts for their lives' sake, and for women who are living in the rural areas. I'm just going to take a pause for that to sink in, that these challenges look differently depending on where women are located in, geographically, socially, digitally, right? So with that making a point, my last slide would talk about how do we move forward, right? So again, the relationship between tourism, creative industries, women, and digitalization in the Philippines is rich with possibility, but also marked with an equal structure. So when we talk about this intersection, we must understand it not only as economic, but it is also cultural, gendered, developmental, and political. And it also emphasizes that women are not just peripheral actors, but they are actually foundational. So hopefully that in our discussion, we talk about the idea that women are foundations of both creative and tourism industries, and that our policies, programs, and platforms must actually treat them that way. So that means that when we support their participation, we also ask, do we give them platforms to own businesses and to own their work? We talk about moving from visibility, but also do they have bargaining power? We talk about digital access, but do they have the capacity, the capability, and strategic advantage to actually participate? And not only representation in labor statistics, but also representation in leadership and decision making. So with that, I hope that I kind of challenged your mind, that make us think more critically in preparation for our panel discussion. So with that being said, thank you very much. Maraming salamat to everyone, and I very much look forward to our panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gutierrez, for setting the stage for today's discussion. If there's something key takeaway is that women are the foundations of tourism and culture, but how can we help them? All right, so let's all be part of the solution. Now, allow me to greet as well some of our Facebook Live viewers. We have Miss Carol Cherry Kalukak from Tuguegarao City. We also have Miss Maria Paz Castro from Quezon City. We also have Glenis Andarme Burgos from Tanay and Ms. Maria Rudora Agustin from PUP. Also, let me take this opportunity to shout out my colleagues from the Department of Trade and Industry. Hello, kamusta kayo dyan? And thank you for tuning in to our online webinar today. So for our 300 Zoom participants and over 70 Facebook viewers, please share your thoughts using our official hashtags, hashtag PIDSX Forum, hashtag Women Empowerment, hashtag TourismPH, and hashtag Gender and Development. And let us know where you are watching us from. Drop a line in our comment section or give us some heart reacts. All right, so also please, again, stay tuned until the end of the discussion. For those joining us via Zoom and Facebook, we will be providing e-certificates. And also to our Zoom participants, they will receive their e-certificates upon completion of the feedback survey form. Meanwhile, Facebook Live viewers can earn theirs by completing a short pop quiz. So the links to both will be shared at the end of the program. So we encourage you to please stay with us until the conclusion. All right, so we now move to the highlight of our program, the panel discussion on reimagining women's empowerment through the lens of creative industries and women-led MSMEs in tourism. And to guide this conversation, may I introduce our moderator, Ms. Maria Cristina G. Aquino, immediate past chairperson of the Tourism Industry Board Foundation, Incorporated. Dr. Aquino is an adjunct professor at Taylor's University in Malaysia and a part-time faculty member at Lyceum of the Philippines University, Batangas, with previous leadership roles as executive director and dean at LTU Manila. She holds degrees from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and has completed PhD coursework in education, specializing in curriculum studies. Now, Ms. Tina, we turn the program over to you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. I noticed that the aura is still around you. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. We have 300, more than 300 Zoom participants, and I'm also watching close to 80 Facebook Live participants today. It's my pleasure to moderate this panel discussion on a topic that is both timely, because it's National Women's Month, and critical. How do we make sure that the issues that were mentioned by Professor Ayla is something that we can find solutions for? How we can reimagine women's empowerment through the intersection of tourism and creative industries. As emphasized earlier, women play central roles in cultural production, tourism experiences, and creative enterprises. Yet many continue to face barriers in financing, skills development, and digital access. Today, we bring together movers and shakers from government, private sector, and academe to share insights and experiences on how we can address these challenges and unlock new opportunities. Allow me first to introduce our esteemed panelists. We have a good friend, Director Roberto P. Alabado III, Robbie, a tourism and development professional and advocate of Philippine culture and biodiversity, who has held key roles in academia, local government, and the Department of Tourism, and currently serves as Director for Film and Sports Tourism while acting as OIZ Regional Director of Mimaropa. Next, we have Ms. Cleofe C. Albizo. She is the Managing Director of Mega World Hotel and Resorts, the Philippines' largest homegrown hotel operator. She champions of people first culture rooted in the circle of happiness and Sampaguita values, fostering inclusivity and equity, and has received multiple international leadership awards and recognition. We also have Mr. John Louis B. Sabal, Assistant Professor at Xavier University Ateneo de Naga at Cagayan, is an economist and academic leader engaged in research and projects on local economic development, MSMEs and inclusive growth, and experience collaborating with government and international partners. Last, we have Ms. Melanie Reyes Tuquet. She founded the Talavera Artists Guild to champion and uplift the artistic community in her hometown of Talavera, Nueva Ecija, and she works closely with the municipal government to promote local heritage through art exhibits and cultural events. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for being part of this important discussion. May I invite each panelist to share their thoughts and insights from Dr. Ayla's seed-setting presentation on tourism, creative industries, women, and digital transformation. Let's hear R.D. Robbie on his thoughts regarding Professor Ayla's presentation and how it impacts the work of DOT. R.D. Robbie, are you ready? The floor is yours.
Yes. Okay, so good morning to everyone. Many of the insights of our esteemed speaker actually we have a lot of studies on that, and we have a lot of experiences on that. However, what struck me is the introduction right now of culture, and some would say, is it the commercialization of culture through the creative industries? Then at the same time, we're now looking at not just on the economic sense, but we're now looking at the platform, and the platform would be tourism. So we in the tourism industry, we are known to be on the hospitality. We are known to be women actually in this, as was discussed by our good professor. Majority of the tourism industry are women, and I appreciate much that she also exposed the other side of tourism in terms of the gender equality or maybe inequality that we have there. So while we have a lot of women in the tourism industry, but the key thing that she was questioning was who controls, who decides. So I think in our tourism industry, we have some kind of gender assignments given. So you would see in accommodation, okay, accommodation na lang, meron ka makikitang, when you say managers, I have met more male managers or GMs, hotel managers, than women. However, when we go to sales and marketing, they are dominated by women. So why is there parang a gender assignments? However, for the past how many years, we have seen a tremendous rise of the entry of women in our leadership roles. So I'm not saying that it has remained that way, but we see that the women participation in decision making in accommodation industry, it's fast ano na, rising the role of women. In tour operations, we have seen a lot of women. So when you say decision making on tour operations, it's always still the women. I have seen them in most of the travel fairs that we have attended. Tour guides, men and women, they're both there. But pagdating naman sa tourism transport, while some may become owners, but a lot of them are still male dominated. So this is the issues that we have in the industry right now. However, in the creative industries, right, it was also shown that um, the women, the creative industry is dominated by women. We have the films, weaves, the culinary, we have the dances, the arts, performing arts. Women have dominated that. However, when we go now to those who are into the policy making, then nandiyan na yung mga lalaki and they tend to dominate it. So from the foundation, we have a lot of women, but as we go up the ladder, then the participation of women is diminishing. So this is what we have observed in tourism. And at the same time, my experience would see that the key thing that the speaker was saying, that we should not only look at it from male or female or gender perspective, but there is actually a lot of factors that are involved that may create further the disenfranchising mechanisms for women. So nandiyan po ang poverty. Nandiyan po yung even the rural and urban divide. So we have to look at that. So even in terms of ano pa, of culture, I'm also a community development graduate, and we have seen that while we appreciate the arts and the culture of our IPs, but we still lack the understanding on why are they um, parang sa akin, we interpret them from our point of view, parang we always say, I've heard this a number of times, ano parang, heto po, these are our IPs. Then there's always they're still uncivilized. I doubt that. I have met tribes or cultural communities that are more civilized than we are. So there is discrimination existing. However, we still have to look at what we have, and that is the Filipino culture. The tourism industry right now is banking on our USP. What is our unique selling proposition to our tourists to come here? It is the Filipino culture, and that culture can be exemplified through our creative industries. And as what was earlier said, that not even just the travelers who come here will be able to experience our creative industries through tourism, but we can now actually export them. So I'm also in with film tourism, and we would like to use our films here in the Philippines to be able to make it into a soft power by influencing other people on our worldview on certain things. We are known for warmth and hospitality and being patient. Can we share that to the world as we have right now? Can they be more patient? Can they be more welcoming? So perhaps film tourism, by exposing our culture to the world through film tourism, to our dances, through our weaves, perhaps we can entice people to change. But at the same time, we can also entice them to visit and see the real thing that we have here in the Philippines. So for women in tourism, they are our leaders, they are our advocates, and they are our guardians of Filipino, excuse me, Filipino culture. So I leave it at that, and later we can discuss more about these insights that I had.
Yes, thank you very much, RD Robbie. In fact, you've blurted out quite a number of issues. You were able to segmentize the different sectors as well as distribution in terms of gender. You were able to also point out that there was diminishing leadership roles that are played by women. You know, I took a look at Philippine stats on population, with 116 million, 116.9 million Filipinos now. It's just a slight difference. We have 49.1 million percent pala, males and 50.19% that are female. And so the percentages are not that great. And yet we see some disparities in the distribution, maybe in certain sectors or in certain leadership roles that we play. I know that DOT is very strong now with the Philippinization standards that you've created, and that's something that's really a big boon for making sure that the Philippines is put in the world map for not only for international tourists, but for local tourists who actually go into different tourism enterprises. And we have one very important person who's going to tell us what it is now in the hospitality industry. Let's hear it from one of LPU Batangas identified the Philippine icons, Miss Cleofe Albiza. The virtual floor is yours now.
Thank you so much, Miss Dr. Christina Aquino. I definitely got glued to the scene setting of Dr. Ayla Gutierrez. Thank you for elaborating the happiness and the pain that we go through in this industry. And here we are in Mega World Hotels and Resorts. So I'm very glad to be a used case, a case study that you can use in this research as we on the ground are able to share to you what really happens to us in the journey of acknowledging that hospitality and creative tourism is one that our government and all the other sectors should be looking into. Let me start off with this word coming from someone who's anonymous. Creativity is the ultimate luxury. If we go to the next slide, please. Creativity is the ultimate luxury in the hands of a woman. A destination becomes a story, and a stay becomes a memory. allow us to elaborate in the next slide without having to talk in depth and in details. Doc Ayla, we do believe that it all comes from the culture. So we have the circle of happiness as our grounding mantra, where we encourage everyone to have love for self so we can have love for the family, and then we can love our work, and then we can give back. This is actually love for country already, not just for the community. And at the center of it is our love for God. And all these that we're talking about should be grounded on a culture that we believe in as an organization. The coming slides that we will show you are a few numbers that will shape the belief of Mega World Hotels and Resorts and how far we have come in this mantra of how we do business. So 90% of our employees say that this is a great place to work. If we move forward to the next slide, 95% of our employees also say that people here are treated fairly, regardless of their sexual orientation. And I think this is an anchor that's very important to where we're leading to. If we move to the next slide, 40% of our women 40% of our entire 3,000 associates are women. And you can see our properties in the slide. Next, please. 55% of our executive leadership are women, and that's all above property roles, including myself as the managing director. Next slide, please. 49.6% are female leaders. This is on hotel and property level. And we are going to also see what is the split based on the discussion of Director Robbie. Indeed, it is true. There are some departments and trades where women actually are more in count, and we shall see that. In the hotels, also 50.4. So we've got a good gender parity. So we're getting there. We're not where we want to be, but we're a work in progress. Let's show this time that of course, sales and marketing, you always see the women sell more effectively. And in the creatives where sales and marketing come into play, there are a lot of women that take on the roles of the sales and marketing department. So let's try to consider in the next split, what are the female heavy departments across Mega World Hotels and Resorts? So that's sales and marketing, front office, of course, but almost equal already as it also holds 56%. And even if there's so much heavy lifting, housekeeping has 65% of women. What about the other departments? Let's move to the next slide. Engineering, of course, there are very few women there, as 90% are men. In the culinary, we have a growing interest of women joining the kitchen department and women in getting themselves involved in the culinary creative scene. For the food and beverage service this time, we have 64% on the wait and service staff. If we move forward, 90%, 90 women have been promoted in just a few years in our organization because we're deliberate in really recognizing and putting into position the women in Mega World Hotels and Resorts. We're running out of time, so let me breeze you through some creative works. The Sampaguita Project, which is a definition of our effort to do culture and history preservation. We also have in the next slide our Muslim-friendly efforts, which doesn't only promote inclusivity, but also our desire to make sure that creatives and our desire to be able to host our Muslim friends and sisters, our families from the Muslim market, know that we are deliberate in taking care of them. Last of this series, we do have mindful travel, where we make sure that we go back to the community where the destination or the hotel is. We can elaborate later in the panel discussion that we partnered with the Ati community in Boracay to make sure that we take care not just of women, but the people that they take care of as well. And let me close with some of these leadership insights, which you can take a shot of, and we can probably elaborate later. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share to you the journey of Mega World Hotels and Resorts in our desire to take care of women, to promote creativity among women, and to make sure that we create a balance between genders in our organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Cleo. This is right after a 7-day R&R. You're talking with a lot of passion, a lot of energy in sharing. Thank you very much for the great numbers that you've shared. This is coming from a 13 property, 88,500 room keys available, and the numbers really are very great. This is going to add on to maybe the figures that Ayla is going to be using when you do your case study. Great numbers, great distribution, and really a strong, deliberate way of making sure that women actually are nurtured and are given their space in Mega World Properties. Let me go now to our next speaker, who is all the way from Cagayan de Oro. And is going to, I think he is the farthest, but I took a look at all the greetings that we have. We have people from Bicol, from Visayas, from Mindanao, and I'd like to go greet everyone for joining us. We have now 314 and around 70 live participants in Facebook. Let's go to Assistant Prof. John with his presentation. The virtual space is yours.
Thank you so much, Doc Tina. I hope that I am audible. Happy Women's
Yes, you
Month.
are.
Thank you. Happy Women's Month to everyone. Good morning once again. Next slide, please. I'd like to begin by emphasizing the critical role of women in the economy. Women are not only contributors to household well-being, but also drivers of broader economic growth. Evidence shows that women's income is more likely than men's to be invested in education, health, and community development, creating multiplier effects and strengthen human capital and community resilience. In the context of the Philippines, demographic transition with gradually declining fertility, longer life expectancy, and changing household structures, women's economic participation becomes even more significant. While the country remains relatively young, fertility rates have been steadily decreasing over time, signaling a shift towards smaller family sizes. As this transition progresses and the population begins to age, women increasingly move into productive roles, providing an opportunity for more inclusive and sustainable growth. Next slide, please. This connects directly to my work in Don Carlos, Bukidnon. Don Carlos is a rural municipality that has traditionally relied on agriculture, but is now positioned to harness the economic potential of Bukidnon Airport. Our tourism master plan identifies Don Carlos' niche assets, including natural attractions, festivals, cultural heritage, agriculture, and local businesses. Women are central to these assets. They manage local enterprises, led cultural production, and shape community-based tourism experiences. Supporting women is therefore not only a question of fairness, it is a strategic economic imperative. Tourism stimulates jobs, strengthens infrastructure, preserves cultural heritage, and drives complementary industries, but only if women can fully participate, lead, and scale these opportunities. Next slide, please. Complementing this, our work in PIDS focuses on women-led cultural MSMEs across the Philippines. To understand the challenges and opportunities, we gathered data through Policy Leadership Workshop series entitled Strengthening Cultural MSMEs Through Inclusive and Gender-Sensitive Policy Innovation. This series was organized by PIDS and the Philippine Apex Study Center Network in partnership with the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada and funded by the Government of Canada. Over the 3 workshop sessions from Quezon City to Nueva Ecija to Cagayan de Oro, we convened women entrepreneurs, government policy actors, local government units, universities, and MSME support organizations through policy ecosystem mapping, plenary exercises, reflections, and consultations. We gathered ground-level evidence on enterprise realities, challenges, and systemic gaps. These workshops were crucial because they allowed us to triangulate evidence across regions and sectors, ensuring that our policy analysis reflects both lived experiences and institutional realities. Next slide, please. From this data, our PIDS policy brief, co-authored by Jean Claristi Carlos, Dr. Francis Mark A. Kimba, Dr. Karenina B. Romualdo, and myself, highlights the following key points. Persistent barriers at the enterprise level. Women face informality, limited access to finance and digital tools, and time constraints due to care responsibilities, which hinders scaling and professionalization. Second, fragmented support systems. National agencies, LGUs, universities, and business associations operate in silos, creating uneven access and requiring women to navigate complex networks. Third, policy misalignment. While laws like Magna Carta for MSMEs, Magna Carta of Women, and the Creative Industries Development Act exist, their implementation is uneven, leaving many women without effective support. Next, undervaluation and unfair competition. Women-led cultural enterprises face copying, market pressures, and limited recognition, threatening both income and cultural heritage. Barriers to formalization and scaling. Informality blocks access to finance, markets, and export pathways, and bureaucratic processes further discourage growth. And finally, digital divide. Many women use basic digital tools, but few can adopt advanced systems like cloud platforms or e-commerce, limiting competitiveness and market reach. Next slide, please. Our brief recognizes solutions across macro, meso, and micro levels. Macro strengthen law in the macro level, strengthen laws and market protections for cultural heritage, IP, and gender equality. For meso, build convergent infrastructure, such as shared facilities, interagency coordination, LGO partnerships, and university support. And for micro, develop enterprise resilience through financial literacy, digital skills succession planning, and strategic agility. Next slide, please. The bottom line is clear. The Philippines does not lack laws. What is missing is coordinated, gender-responsive implementation that turns existing instruments into a functioning support system for women-led cultural enterprises. Next slide, please. And finally, I'd like to speak as a man. I want to emphasize that empowering women is not their responsibility alone. Men, institutions, and policymakers have a critical role to play, opening access to networks and resources, designing programs that account for care responsibilities, and valuing women's contributions as drivers of economic growth, cultural preservation, and community resilience. So let me just end. No, I know that it's already time, but whether in Don Carlos or across the Philippines, The evidence is clear. Investing in women is investing in the economy. Tourism, culture, and entrepreneurship are powerful engines of inclusive growth, but they realize their full potential only when women have the tools, agency, and support to lead. So the Philippines does not lack policies. What we need is to scale up the capacity of those who implement them. Gender-responsive governance should not be treated as one-time task, but as a sustained way of working embedded in our institution. So if we are serious about inclusive and sustainable development, then empowering women must move from policy intent to everyday practice, shaping how we design programs, allocate resources, and deliver results on the ground. Thank you so much, and I look forward to our discussion later.
Thank you, Professor John. Really, you did not just cite the issues, but you also recommended some solutions at the macro, the meso, and the micro level. Sabi ko nga, all levels. And it's nice to see that there are people who are supportive of women initiatives coming from the other sector. But it's not just, I think, unique in a few areas, but I think there are now general awareness also of women empowerment. From Cagayan de Oro, we go to Nueva Ecija with Miss Melanie Tuquet as she champions and uplifts the artistic community in Talavera Artists Guild. Okay, Melanie, the floor is yours.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Thank you po, Dr. Aquino. So, brief introduction po about sa our guild. So, ang our guild po, obviously, is Talavera Artist Guild. Ito po ay binubuo ng mga artist mula sa bayan ng Talavera, Nueva Ecija. So, binuo ko po itong guild na to dahil tama po para magkaboses po tayo. Kung marami po tayo sa datos, mas napapakinggan po tayo. And para maiangat din po ang sining sa aming bayan, medyo malayo po kami sa Metro Manila. So kami po ay mga visual artists mula sa aming bayan. Kami po ay nag-i-express at nagko-communicate at nag-i-interpret ng mga nangyayari sa paligid or ng ating pong mga nakaraan, mga history, heritage, through sa amin pong art to connect sa lahat. And ang platform po na social media platform ay malaking tulong din po sa aming guild. Gawa po ang aming pong audience, we gather broader audience kasama po ng na-discuss ni Ma'am Ellie. So, ang aming pong emosyon, ideas, at perspective ay inilalagay po namin sa canvas and leave it to you viewers to personally connect with it. So, and we try to keep po ang ating cultural pride and identity through our arts as a contribution po sa ating komunidad. Yun lamang po.
Thank you very much, Melanie. You want to show your video at this time?
Apo, ito pong video na to, ginawa lang po namin ito nung Monday. Kasama po dito ang aming punong bayan. At ang may DTI representative din po at aming pong LGUs at mga members. Ito pong part ng panel po na to ay mai-exhibit po. I'm inviting you everyone po kung free to drop by sa Art Tablado Robinson's Galleria. Ito po ay 10 panel na sa iba't ibang parte ng Pilipinas manggagaling gawa ng mga artist sa komunidad. Kasama din po ang mga LGUs na bubuuin po at magiging isang malaking mural. So I give you po to watch the videos how we make our part of the panel.
Okay. Congratulations, Miss Melanie. You have created a wonderful art piece, not just made by one person, but most probably multiple hands. I saw maybe 8, 10 people coming together to
All
actually
teachers
create.
and members po.
Yes, and from different sectors at that. Congratulations. Now,
Thank you.
let's go on with our panel discussion. We have seen, heard the insights of many of our panelists. We started with RD Robbie, who actually shared the segmentation of the different sectors in terms of gender. We also had Miss Cleo, who shared, wow, numbers in their 3,000 plus strong workforce that you have. We also had Sir John, who shared his initiatives, his studies based on the women empowerment in a particular area in the region. We also had Miss Melanie, who shared the power of art with different people as well, and bringing together for us to actually pick and poke the paper of Ayla this morning. Ayla is going to be part also of our wonderful presentation, panel discussion. We have more than 300 Marites in the room, in the Zoom room, and we have around 60 plus Marites in FB Live. I hope the numbers grow because this is really something that's very interesting. It's not something that is put to our faces normally, but you know, with us celebrating National Women's Month, this is our month to shine. But it doesn't mean that this is the only month that women are going to be considered as something meaningful in the celebration. We're actually here 365 days a year, and it's just that it just so happens that March is something that we can call our month. Maybe we'll have less home activities. We'll have more time for self-reflection, and maybe celebrating what we have. Okay, let's start with Sir Robbie. Robbie, you've been with film, sports, and media, and you've seen how it shaped many destinations that are now being discovered, as well as experienced by local and domestic and foreign international tourists. I think now we'll have more domestic tourists again with increasing gas prices. How can digital platforms expand opportunities for women in tourism, in storytelling?
Yes, in many parts of our country, we have a mobility issue. And I think digital platforms is a form of it may, I'm not saying it will, it may be able to provide opportunities for the voices of our women entrepreneurs, our
Yes.
women creators to
Yes.
really put their creative work in the forefront worldwide. However, as was discussed earlier, we also have a lot of issues. Even now, we have some properties or mga tourism establishments who are still finding it hard to accredit their properties because they still lack knowledge, know-how, skills in managing digital platforms. There's the internet issue. There's
Accessibility.
even the age issue,
Mhm.
like in terms of adopting to new technology. But what we are doing now is a push towards digitalization. The Department of Tourism is pushing for digitalization, not just to allow presence or exposure to the world, but including the economic sense. We have, especially if we're looking at the foreign market, when they come here to the Philippines, they are here to spend. However, the reality is we are a cash-based society or economic
Yes.
system.
Yeah.
Sila, they are now into digital.
Mm.
So there is still that divide that we have to overcome so that our entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs in the creative industries, can be able to maximize their exposure to the market, but at the same time earn more from this.
Yes.
So
Yes.
digitalization still has its challenges in the tourism
Limitation.
industry.
Okay, thank you, Sir Robbie. You know, with 18 regions, 82 provinces, 7,641 islands, how do you connect everyone? Because it's an archipelagic characteristic that we have in our country. How do you connect? And sometimes, you know, connectivity and accessibility is something that can be challenging. But with the learnings of the pandemic, we were able to connect. This is a good example. We were supposed to have it face to face, but because of some challenges now with gasoline prices and so on, we decided to go online. And with this online, we now have more than 300 plus around 700 Zoom participants and 70 plus, which is Facebook Live participants. Digitalization is really the way to go. In fact, you're able to see, you're able to get some of the products and services most probably at your doorstep through couriers, etc. Because if you've seen it someplace and you make it available, then somewhere in online, somehow, somewhere, it's going to reach your patrons as well. Miss Cleo, coming, you have your Sampaguita, the circle of happiness, if your Sampaguita, etc. You've got a lot of creative ideas coming about in the different sectors and different areas that you have in your operation. How does this empower women?
Thank you, Dr. Tina. We
Yes.
fully recognize that being a homegrown brand, we
Yeah.
need to be extra hardworking to create the brand equity for the brand to be recognized, not just here in the Philippines, but also globally. So we
Yes.
wanted to create an imprint where people will remember us, and
Yeah.
that's where we put the Sampaguita project,
Mhm.
where we created the Sampaguita as a representation, a visual that we put through the five senses when they go to the hotel. So
Okay.
it's visible. I am wearing my Sampaguita pin now here. Oh, it's in the other side. The Sampaguita pin. We've got Sampaguita for our decorations. And we do have a lot of projects that revolve around the Sampaguita. Our F&B, we do have food and beverage that have a touch of Sampaguita. We partnered with Well-Being that develops scenting, the Sampaguita scenting, and all these come into play with a desire for us to put forward the national flower. So it's
Okay.
not just about history and culture preservation, but we also believe in the values of the Sampaguita, which is love, dignity, honor, and healing, which truly represents every Filipino,
Okay.
especially everyone in the hospitality industry, travel industry, where we always try to put up that strong fight for us to be
Okay.
recognized. And that also represents women in our
Yes.
industry. So the storytelling is there, Doc Tina, to
Yeah.
make sure that people resonate to the story, to the
Yes.
values, and they remember the creativity behind the storytelling.
Okay. It's just coincidental that the name Sampaguita is also a woman's name? Was it a woman that actually put forth that Sampaguita will be the trademark or a brand that should be closely associated with your hotels?
It's a group of people from our team that really put their hearts and minds together to create the project. And
Yeah.
it's a desire to relive the glory days of our Sampaguita, our national flower,
Uh,
knowing that it's a dying industry.
oh,
We
oh,
have very limited Sampaguita already. So we're trying to create partnerships. Just recently, we had our Sampaguita planting in the Lapu-Lapu City, where we
ah,
partnered with the mayor, Cindy Chan, who
yes.
also gathered women advocates who
I see.
planted Sampaguita with us. And we will
Oh,
continue to partner with organizations that will help us. We partner with DOT as well,
okay.
in making sure that the Sampaguita is a flower and the plant that we are taken care of, especially in the propagation.
So with the 13 properties that you have, Sampaguita is supposed to be there as well. And you've got maybe plantations or something
It
that
is
will be
in
able
our
to support.
nurseries.
Yes, very good. Okay, nice to know about that. Professor Louis, you mentioned the macro, the meso, and the micro uh, uh, solutions that are provided. Just give me one where you think that this will be able to address already the support for women-led MSMEs. Can you give me one, just one, among the many solutions, and many to address the gaps that you have?
Well, I think the main concern, no, for women-led MSMEs is really about adapting to digitalization. No? I remember we had this conversation with Dr. Kimba and the rest of the PIDS team. That suppose if a woman-led enterprise, say, produces something and a tourist would take a picture of it, and then
Mm,
after taking a picture of it, what if they would make it as a uniform, no,
yes,
in their company?
yes.
How in that manner we try to protect the creativity of a
Okay,
woman-led or a cultural-led MSMEs. So
okay,
with the advent of technology, internet and AI, the function of women and their creativity is also at risk. So that's also an important aspect. That's why in our policy brief we try to highlight that as well, no? And other forms of digitalization aspects that a woman could also take advantage of, no? So I think that would be very important, no? And we mentioned that as a digital divide. There are also digital tools, no, that perhaps women could also take advantage of, but they require a training as well. Because as we know, we are not anti-development here. We embrace this technology, but we have to also navigate it through in a way that it won't exploit
okay.
women and culture as well.
Okay. Is digitalization really a gender divide or is it an age divide that we have? Because I know that a lot of young people are actually digital natives already from the age maybe at zero age they're already playing with the iPads or cell phones of parents, etc. Is it really more a digital gender divide or an age divide that we have?
Well, I do not want to say that it is also an age divide because I have a lot of titas who are more at the with technology than I am, no.
Yeah.
But what I'm just going to say is perhaps geographical difference would also
Ah,
matter, no. Working
yeah.
in the ground, I'm not
Yes.
saying that people in the ground are not also adaptive to digitalization or technology, but it requires time. No? It requires time. Working
Mm.
in the local governments, we know that technologies such as even artificial intelligence could also enable or help them, but it requires time. No, they require proper training as well and information about how to maximize the benefits of these opportunities.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe that's really a policy direction that LGU should provide to make sure that connectivity is something that should be first in their priorities right now, especially with, a lot of things that are happening. It can be weather disturbance, it can be gasoline issues that you have, it can be, but connecting the 7,641 islands is a must thing that we should do because I think it will level up the playing field if everybody gets all the information at the same time. Melanie, I'm very interested about the Talavera. I was paying attention to your necklace. I love the necklace, by the way. Is that something you created? But the Talavera Artists Guild. The word guild is something that's very familiar to me because in the tourism and hospitality, if you go to Europe, guilds are the way that you're able to train apprentices and find them become masters of their trade. With your pastel, what is it, Project Pastel Without Borders?
No,
Pastel,
ma'am, the
uh,
past beyond borders.
Beyond
So,
borders, yeah. How do you achieve, you're looking at having this event in Robinson's Galleria,
so
but you have people coming from Nueva Ecija, contributing panels, maybe from other places as well. What how do you make sure that all those who are interested would actually be able to see the creations that you've made?
So,
Yes.
hello, clear po
Yes,
ba
yes,
ako?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, this project po, Pastel Beyond Borders, is a national project by the founder of Philippine Pastel Association,
Okay.
which is Mr. Julius Legaspi. So this 10 panels po, magte-take part po dito is 10 communities from all over the Philippines, from Mayaoyao, Ifugao, Pampanga, Baguio, and we are able to acquire one panel to be put on this mural puzzle. And this exhibition po will be held in Art Tablado at Robinson's Galleria on April 11. On top of it po, we also have 15 representatives, artist representatives from our town, in which we will showcase the county of our town. So ilalagay po namin sa canvas, ilalapit po namin sa viewers kung ano ang meron kami sa aming bayan. So,
Yes. And is this something that will strengthen women empowerment, or it's
of
going to be
course
really a
po,
celebration of art? Yeah.
of course po, dahil marami po kaming miyembro na may nanay po, walang trabaho, but through our arts, then now she's involved in the society. She's involved in empowering women. Kasama na rin po ako kasi hindi po ako employed. And then by involving in this project and by founding this guild, then now I have a contribution. I believe I have another contribution to our society and to my town. Isa na rin po dito ang aming logo. Yan pong logo namin. This
Yeah.
one is the shape of the map of our town.
Oh, okay. There's a meaning to it.
This part in
Okay.
the logo po. So,
Okay.
in this guild po, which most of our members are women, so we continue to involve to document the history and heritage and keeping the cultural pride and identity of our town through our arts po.
Okay, congratulations for founding for making sure that art is still central to your town by establishing the Talavera Artist Guild. Dr. Ayla, you're wanted here because you presented a working paper. We'd like to see your thoughts on one anonymous attendee who said that tourism does not merely consume culture; it can stage, it can circulate and sustain it. How do we find staging here? Is this especially now that cultural appropriation is a major issue in the tourism industry?
Yes. So I think, again, thank you for the question. So I think when we term staging, our mindset is, like cultural appropriation. But I think let me clarify it by defining it, right? So when I say staging, I mean intentionally presenting culture. So I'd like to emphasize on the term intentional, meaning we ask who is actually doing the staging, for who are we staging it, and under what terms. So I think this also could be related to the other questions that were posted later on. So yeah, I
Great.
hope that answers it.
I think it's something that we also must celebrate now because the Philippine culture is very unique, and there are ways that we can actually make sure that everybody is aware of what's happening in the various regions that we have. There are very nice colors, various weaves, various flavors that we experience. Ang sabi nga ni Miss Cleofe, it's really a multi-sensory experience that you have with the Sampaguita. But I think it goes hand in hand with any type of cultural element. We now have from Bradley. By the way, if you have any questions, do post them in the Q&A button of the Zoom. Our panelists will be able to answer them online as well. But I'd like to call up some of the
Tina.
questions. Yes, Sir Robbie, what can you want to share something?
Yeah,
Yes.
I would, yeah, yeah. I would just like to share with you na parang I know technology will actually expose
Yes.
Digitalization, social media, they are exposing now or exposing, presenting, staging our culture in the
Mm.
world
Yes.
stage.
Yes.
And there is a really big danger. It's both positive and negative. Always see every opportunity or every technology that we have. It can be used in a good way or in a bad way.
Mm.
And cultural appropriation is a consequence once we have people who actually are just parang I see them as vampires who are just sucking the creativity of our traditional. These designs have been were made for thousands of years. They have evolved
Yeah.
for centuries or
Mm.
millennia.
Uh,
Then papapasok, then kukunin niya lang, then gagamitin niya in
yes.
another way.
Mm.
I'm from Mindanao,
Yes.
and we are very careful on how we use our cultural communities designs
Mm-mm.
as much as
Mm-mm.
possible. Us in the lowlands, kung sa mga mga Aita, tayong mga unat, we have to be careful in how we utilize the traditional culture that we have, because these are our parang it's in our DNA.
Legacy. Yeah.
And if we're going to do parang GMO na aayusin natin ulit to, then it may have a negative impact on the
Okay.
future of our
Okay.
own culture. So we
Yes.
have to be careful on such.
But
Let's be Filipinos and
yes.
respect our Filipino culture.
Yeah, but doesn't culture evolve over time because of new developments that we have? This is a way of also making sure that
Mm,
some of these elements are actually shared with a greater majority of people. It used to be, when I go to a province or a particular area, I'd get some trinkets, I'd get some weaves at that, and use it some way. But sometimes people will say there's a way to wear it, etc., etc. But again, it's also a compliment, because now you have seen that some of these are actually being used already by a greater majority of people. So does culture have to be static at the same time? When you do like your arts, Melanie and John, you
mm,
were saying that you were helping women develop souvenir items, etc., that are going to be, because you were developing an airport area. Are these things that have to be do they have to be static, or they can be attuned also with what the demands of the market make for it?
mm.
Well, let me answer first. No, I think culture should remain. No, but we can always enhance it. No, with further developments. No, but that's actually the risk that we are aware of. That when
Yes.
we expose women and cultural communities, they might see, especially the younger ones, they might see
Mm.
that the other communities are better, so they have to adapt or they have to change. No,
Yes.
what we are trying to tell them is that your uniqueness is your edge. No, it's your niche,
Yes.
and so you have to stick to it. That's who you are. That's your identity. But perhaps we can always enhance it with new developments and information. No, so
Yes.
that's what we are trying to tell them.
Uh-uh.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Maybe trademark, making sure that this is registered somewhere so that you can actually have a claim to what the original art is.
Yeah.
Melanie, with art, does it evolve? Have you changed through the years? Have female your women artists, have they changed the way that they create their art pieces? It's okay.
Right.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So, in our guild po, we try to keep, they can do whatever they want to do on how they create their arts outside our guild. But ang
Yes.
mandato ko po kasi dito is, I want to preserve the culture. So, we stick to traditional arts.
Okay.
And naniniwala po kasi ako na, and not what the people want out in the market, because
Mm.
I'm preserving art. So, if we think about
Mm.
the money that we get from arts, then for me po, that is my own point of view. That is not an arts anymore.
I see. Okay.
Nagiging
Maybe,
negosyante po kami. So,
oo.
gusto po namin i-preserve ang kultura through our arts, ang identity. So, we take pride po on that. And the rest will follow.
Yeah, maybe DOT can help you out by tapping the artists who are yan si Sir Robbie has his hand raised kasi alam ko naglalagay ng mga maraming paintings, maraming mga decor na pwedeng galing sa mga local artisans that you have.
Yes.
Yeah, Sir Robbie.
For the Department of Tourism right now, with the thrust of Philippinization, we have actually placed it pagdating po sa mga sa point system namin pagdating sa accreditation, especially star rating for hotels.
Yes, yeah.
We are going to tell everyone, if you are going to set up a hotel, then you should put local culture or locally crafted items within your area.
So this can be in food?
It's going to, in food. Example, in Palawan, I know right now, they are now passing legislation na dapat pag if it's going to be breakfast, then we should have local food there. So yung isda doon na ilalagay natin. So we have to put something about our place, our culture in there. So be it in the room, so visuals, music, food. So all of these sensory experiences in tourism that tourists would like to have, let's put them there. So iano ko lang yung kanina, we have to differentiate what is traditional art and what is contemporary. Our women right now are actually empowered that in some ways, some of the traditionally men's attire or ornaments have actually been appropriated by women. You would have some examples of that in Mindanao na parang it has created some reaction from our
positive, negative,
mixed
on the negative side actually.
Okay. This is actually something that you mentioned in your sharing initially, RD Robbie. You said yung commercialization. As we engage with culture through creative tourism, how can we navigate the tension between commodifying culture and ethical ways to capitalize on cultural experiences? Kasi nalalagyan ng presyo, nagiging commercial, nawawala na yung intent of celebrating the arts. How do we do this? This is an open question to everyone. Do you have any thoughts to share? Just,
Yeah, I'd like to chime in.
Yeah. There are no wrong or right answers here. It's really a sharing of past experiences and how you were able to navigate this commercialization and celebrating art.
It's two-pronged. Like for McWorld Hotels and Resorts, we're also partners with DOT for the Philippinization. The Sampaguita is also one that we work closely with the DOT, in fact, inspired by the DOT when we developed this. And we work closely with them in many of our executions. I think the interpretation as to case in point, our modern Filipiniana, as long as we stay true to what's allowed and not, example, especially the point that Director Robbie was trying to stress, what are culturally acceptable would have to be considered. But there are interpretations that we have to also embrace and celebrate because the contemporary use is adjusting to the times. Because of course you cannot have our Filipinianas that are very restrictive. Like women have embraced the convenience of the design of the use of the fabric. That in itself is worth celebrating because it took us time to actually embrace it, and we're very happy that it has become the go-to choice for special occasions and where we want to showcase what we've got. In terms of the commercialization, we also have to look at the business segment of everything that we do.
Yeah.
Our passion is there, but we have shareholders that actually expect us to make sure that the business keeps afloat.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, if we're not able to also create the profitability, we will not have the empowerment put forward our passion. So
Okay.
there has to be a balance to make sure that the efforts do not come out as passion projects only. We have to be able to look at the business side of things so that the commercial aspect is one that fuels the passion and our desire to keep
Yeah.
it growing.
Okay, well said. The ROI is still something that's very important for everyone. Ayla was actually nodding her head vigorously, and I don't know if she has something to share on this.
Yes, actually, I'm just looking at the list of questions that we have, and I feel like we could answer like a few questions in one go. So I'll
Yeah.
take my stab at it. So I guess we're talking about authenticity now, right? And especially with digitalization, it's so easy to commercialize things and even culturally appropriate, production. So I guess when we talk about authenticity, the first thing I think that I want to put out there, I think, is how we connect really with the creators. It could be from the indigenous community, the women, or whoever. I
Yeah.
think it's really giving them a platform, a voice, a say on how much is being shared and what is being shared. Because I remember one time, Miss Cleofeo talked about the weaves, right? So I remember going to one of the indigenous communities in Mindanao, and then when I went to the weaving area, that I realized, oh, that this specific weave cannot be used anywhere near the foot, or it cannot touch the ground, right? But then I would see some products that are actually, using some of that cloth somewhere near the ground. So I'm like, like if this is, again, say these are like the creators of it. Again, if we don't give them a platform, may it be men or women, if we don't give them a platform to actually say that this is how we want to promote or showcase our culture, then we don't have actually guidelines to know if this is culturally appropriate or not. So again, it's, yes, women are mostly at the center of it, but I'm saying that if we give them a platform, if we talk about authenticity, we want to give them a platform to actually say what is appropriate and what it's not. So I think coming from that, I think one of the questions here is that what are our recommendations to make sure that we remain authentic? I think one thing that I thought of is really setting boundaries, and that boundaries are set with women and with the community who actually own it. And then from there, everything will follow, the protocols, cultural protocols, the governance, and all that stuff. So there.
Right. Okay. I always say that sometimes when you're talked, when an incident is talked about or when something is pointed out as something that's wrong, the mere fact that it comes out in a discussion is really an opportunity now for you to clarify, to make sure that people have a better understanding of that issue. Sabi ko, pain points are always good opportunities for further discussion and for maybe to take advantage and make sure that policies are set in place or more information dissemination happens. Yeah, John, you have your hand raised.
Yes, my answer to that is it really depends, no, on the community. It's a decision they have to make. So whenever we engage here in Mindanao, no, with local communities, we make it sure that we are presenting ourselves as their equal, not someone from heaven who is in the community to try to answer their problems. But relationships matter. So it's a decision that the local communities will have to decide. But so I agree with Doc Ayla, no, that we have to provide them with platform. But we also acknowledge that local communities also experience knowledge gap. So sometimes they trust us to make the decision, but we need local champions in the community who we could perhaps train, provide the necessary information so that that champion can convince his or her peers, no,
Yeah.
about that. Let me just cite something in Don Carlos. There is this bamboo painting, and we have identified it as a potential niche for Don Carlos. But there's only one guy in that local tribe who could make the bamboo painting, and it's difficult to find him. So we're saying this could be a niche, but perhaps it's a decision because maybe they are not yet open to commercialize it because it's a significant part of their culture. But we need to train local champions in the community who would help us convince them.
You mentioned earlier about people operating in silos, and maybe, I go back to always it takes a village to raise tourism. And it's something that really has to be collectively decided by all the stakeholders in the community.
Yes, yes.
Director Robbie, sorry, Professor
If
John.
if I may add, sorry,
Yeah.
but this requires time, no? So it could be true that when we convince them right now, they are not yet open, but that's why I mentioned it's relationship. So it
Yes.
requires time, no, in
Yes.
preparing them.
Okay. Maybe good coordination as well. Director Robbie, you have your hand raised.
Yes. In terms of our women have always been our as we have said, guardians of our culture. Our weavers have been there for so long, and actually I've seen the value chain kung paano sila how they reach the market. It is our women who will be doing the hard work. Then at the same time, it goes to the consolidator. Meron isang middle person. It's usually a woman because the women in the community would always trust a woman also. Even eto sa lowland to. Then kukunin niya. Then later it hanggang sa makarating sa mga designers, hanggang sa makarating sa sa consumers. And I've encountered so women are actually helping each other so that the weaves of the women in the communities can reach the consumers. But again, there are different types of women then. We would have to look now on who controls what. Who controls the price? Me, I cannot sorry for bato-bato sa langit, matamaan wag magalit. I cannot stomach na bakit ganito lang ang binabayad ninyo sa community, but when you're going to sell your clothes, your clothes, ikaw lang naman ang gumawa ng clothes para yung pattern dyan sa loob, community yan. No one will buy your clothes. People are buying that because of the pattern woven by our traditional. But why is a big bulk of the money, the profit out of that finished product goes to those sa naglagay ng shirt or ng blouse na linagay yung pattern. Maliit ang napupunta sa mga women weavers natin on the traditional side, but those who made it into a contemporary wear, they get bulk of the money. So this is an issue now between women, between men and women in who's marketing it, and
or
at
the
the same
value chain.
time between the the value chain. So that's my my concern.
Yung buko nga, 'di ba? Pag pumunta ka sa Laguna, magkano lang 'yon, pero pagdating dito sa Metro Manila, 50 pesos na o 65 pesos. Really, there's somebody who's earning so much as compared to the farmer versus who is selling it. But let me just go on. There's a question here that's very interesting. How can cross-sector collaboration? We have people from government, from private, from industry, from academe who are here, accelerate women's leadership and visibility in creative industries. Is there something that you can say from your industry, from your sector that will say na, here, we are celebrating women in the creative industries. What can cross-sector collaboration from your end propose to everyone here? Any thoughts on that?
I guess I'll take a stab on it, Doc Tina.
Okay,
So again, I think in terms of, I wanted to put it simply first, like the most basic step that a lot of people could do So essentially, for example, for us, for the academy, because we also host events, right? So we
Yes.
host training programs and all that sort. So consciously, I think this is what everyone could do. Consciously, I try to ask myself, because like the default of people is to just invite guests and hosts and panelists, right? But nobody checks is all genders represented here? Basic thing. Like if we come up with a program or like an event, are women represented not just as moderators but as experts? Because yes, we're good at moderating things, right? But I mean, like, it baffles me to think that, okay, there's a topic on economic empowerment, and then you can only find men who could speak of it. I mean, are you telling me that there are no qualified women who could speak about it? So I'm not saying that it's all should be women, but I guess that sort of break and pause to think whether someone else could actually represent that. I think it starts with that. So that's what we're doing from our end, from the academic sector. And I think in terms of cross collaboration, I hate to use the word, but I have to use it. It's always like a whole of government approach that everyone's saying. But I think what's important is that we really put gender at the heart of everything that we're doing, especially when it comes to policies. Because otherwise, if we don't, for example, I think one of the questions here also is like, why is there no PCW representative in the Philippine Creative Industry Development Program, right? So the challenge to that, if it's that they're not represented, then what happens is that all gender concerns are treated as downstream implementation issues instead of informing the policy design. So that's what's happening right now. That's why we have like gender issues that have been there. It's because it's always not thought of at the policy level. It's always okay, it's an issue that we experience, but then walang stopgap at the start. So I think in that way, for me, from the academe, it's something that I want to put forward in a most basic sense. But I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts about it as well. You're on mute,
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah. Okay, because I cough and so I had to cover my microphone. Miss Cleo had a lot of numbers earlier, and she was saying, in the front office, etc., etc. Now, how do you make sure that you're able to celebrate women or empower them at that?
Thank you, Doc Tina. I'd like to chime in to the question of the synergy that
Yes.
we have to be doing across multi-sectoral stakeholders.
Yes.
I think we're already at the doorstep of really making things happen. What AIM, through the efforts of Doc Ayla here, is doing is already a big leap in terms getting to that where everyone is heard, everyone is represented. Because just sitting here as one of your panelists actually opens my mind to a lot of things that we are not privy of. How Director Robbie is actually very passionate about really respecting the ones whose hands have created the weaves and the fabric. These are things we don't even look into with so much intensity, but we will do now, hearing the passion of everyone to really put forward respect across all of the members of the ecosystem who create all these products. But the one thing that we'd also like to fully emphasize, the private sector is really doing a lot of synergy work. Here for Mega World Hotels and Resorts, we do a lot of MICE alliances where we tap not just the DOT, but the DTI to make sure that our propositions, not just branding a city, not just in positioning any of these destinations, so that we become a consideration for MICE venues or to create more tourist arrivals. We tap multi-sectors, which allows us to hear the voice and to have representation across all facets of the ecosystem. So as to your question, in terms of the different trades that we have, the hospitality industry really used to be a male-dominated industry. it has always been perceived as a 24/7 work,
Mhm.
especially that when there are crises, you're always the last to go out of your property.
Mhm.
Just remember COVID. How is it to be hands-on like a hospital,
Mhm.
taking making sure that everyone that's repatriated and are housed in the respective hotels as an essential business actually plays the role
Mhm.
of a health worker.
Yeah.
These are things that we have to celebrate for, because more and more women are taking on male dominated roles. I would have to put this in that there's a perception that when you take on a higher role, especially the C-suite levels, you just have to forget about your love life, your personal life, your children. You will have to just send them a telegram or a text message. Video calls would have to be your life. But no, we already have a choice to
Yes.
still keep the work-life balance
Uh-uh.
despite holding a position that's actually perceived to be successful if it's a man
Yeah.
handling that. So
Okay.
times have changed, and we're happy to
Yes.
celebrate
And
that.
the glass ceiling has been shattered by women like you, who have taken real leadership roles to prove that male-dominated. It's not. I guess it's not a male. We have to change the mindset. It's not really dominance of whatever gender, but really showing that everyone is capable of doing things. Regardless of the gender that we have. Any thoughts? John has a very nice smile. You want to share your thoughts?
Well, I just want to reiterate no, what we said in our policy brief, that there is a need to harmonize efforts as well, because what I discovered, at least in my little experience, is that people are seems to be competing no, with their initiatives in helping women. But we could always synergize and collaborate in order to have bigger impacts. But my observation, no, pardon me if I would just have to say this, but some people in the ground, they see, for example, gender and development as a requirement. But
Uh,
this is not a requirement. No, it is a way of life. It is a framing the way you see things. No, but the way policies are being implemented, that's what we are highlighting in our policy brief, is that we have a lot of enabling policies, but the implementation in the ground is always a big challenge. No, and we
mm,
also have to train. I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, dito naman tayo, God na ulit, palagi na lang God. So it's a requirement. So it has now become a tedious process, a requirement, a task, when in fact, the purpose of all of this is how to change no, the way we see things. Framing is
okay.
also very
Yeah.
important.
You see a lot of these God activities happening towards the tail end of the year, because they have to consume the 5% allocated budget for God programs. And it seems that it's always awareness, but never leveling up. And so there has to be also a look through on the God agenda that each government agency has. We've got to move forward already beyond just awareness, maybe empowering women, maybe, sometimes it's not just women that you have to empower. Sometimes there are genders that are not empowered as well. And so you've got to make sure that these are also celebrated. Yeah, Chef Robbie, Director Robbie, you have some thoughts
Chef
on
Rob
this?
yun, yung aking pinsan, si Chef Rob Pinson is my cousin.
Yes.
Uh,
Okay.
anyway, I would like to add to that na ano na sagad kasi
Uh,
would you believe we've learned about this during college pa. We were some of the pioneers in gender and development and community development. Yung ano I remember it was Dr. Amarilis Torres who actually had a book mainstreaming gender and development in the government bureaucracy.
mm,
And
mm,
lo and behold, 30 years now. I've been with the government for like 25 years. And we're still doing that. Mainstreaming pa rin. It's still on the beginning side.
mm.
It's now 25 years. We should be now on the midsection that it has been mainstreamed and we are just enhancing it. However, I don't know what's taking so long, but I would still say that in the industry, in government, and we have reached a long way
Yeah,
in
yes.
mainstreaming it. However, the trainings, the capability, building trainings and seminars that we have are still stuck in the 1990s pa. We have to start going forward, moving just like this seminar. We're now talking about the intricacies of culture, tourism, women,
Yes, yes.
the economy. So
Uh,
we have moved forward for parang very far na rin ang
okay.
nagawa natin. So
Yeah. I think
ang
it all,
concerns natin,
yeah. Yeah, sige, continue.
Uh,
Continue.
our concerns on gender right now would be on the creative side. We have tourism. What are the gender issues there? We have to
Yeah.
talk about that. Na
Yes.
parang the creative sector, we're now into the creative sector because we know that it is also an area where women actually have a say in most of the industry that were cited under the creative industries. Most of them have a say on that. And how can we use this as a tool? Hindi lang that sana dito sa creative industry, but we can use the creative industries as a vehicle to move forward and also penetrate other industries, other
Yeah.
professions.
I guess
So, yun yung nakikita ko eh. Yeah.
I think academe should also do their part, especially at the younger level, development level. They have to teach people that it's not stereotyping certain jobs, developing really competencies, regardless of whatever gender that we have. Melanie, you want to share your thoughts about how cross-sector collaboration can help? Because I saw in your video that you had DTI, you had various people coming together to create your panel. It was not just members of the Talavera Artists Guild, but you also had other people there. Maybe that was one way of intentionally saying that art is not really just for the artists, but also other stakeholders. Yeah, you want to share something about this?
Yes po, we're all artists in our own way.
Yeah.
Luckily po, ngayon, medyo easy na nga po sa mga artists because sa mga programs ng DTI, ng mga tourism, local tourism offices, like for example po sa Nueva Ecija Tourism, isa po sila sa backbone po namin and the Talavera LGU po and Talavera Tourism Office. So, marami po silang program na ina-affiliate din po nila sa mga artists. And sa recent meeting po namin sa aming LGU, ang proposed program po nila for next year, like for example, in 2027, April 2027, they wanted to do the food festival, and then maybe po we will collaborate on that by painting foods. So, lagi po nilang ini-include ngayon yung mga kagaya namin, yung mga LGUs po natin, and applaud din po sa DTI, Creative Industries, napakalaking tulong din po nila sa amin and yung mga masisipag na mga taga-tourism office po.
Okay. I guess the law that was mentioned by Professor Ayla, the creation of the law will allow more creative protection as well, making sure that they're able to collaborate with other stakeholders in their pursuit of creation. This is yes,
Intellectual
yes.
property ownership ng DTI.
Okay, sige. This question, what role do mentorship and networks play in empowering women artists, designers, and innovators? Is there significant role that they can play? So if you mentor or if you do networking, do they help in making sure that empowering women artists, designers, and innovators are realized? Anyone who wants to take?
I think I'll just take a
Yes.
stab at it because it
Yeah.
somehow touches on training and capacity building, right?
Yes.
And then maybe I could ask Miss Melanie since she's more on the ground. So I think in terms of that, I'd like to point out a few things. So first is that what I realized in my dissertation, because my dissertation is on women's empowerment, right, in tourism. So what I noticed is that even the mere presence of successful women in spaces like this actually influence other women to feel empowered already. So that's why I'm very keen on having, for example, Doc Tina, Miss Cleof, and Miss Melanie, of course, joined by Director Robbie and Louis, right? But the more that other women and other younger generations see that women can do so many things and can occupy positions that are usually taken by men, then they feel more inspired to actually strive more for themselves. And this hits the point in when we talk about empowerment. It doesn't just talk about an external factor empowering us, but the mere, that internal workings of your brain and you realizing that, hey, I could do something about this because I'm inspired. Then what's one thing? So that's one. And then at the second layer is that in terms of mentoring and capacity building, right? I think what we do, again, this boils down to the fact of who we actually tap into to create kunyari, programs on management. Of course, we haven't been very focused on creating a gender development program. That's my dream. I would love to teach that, right? But since we're at the level wherein we talk about management, economics, policy development, community development, if we tap into people who actually already considers gender aspects or facets of those things, then you integrate it slowly. Parang okay, when you talk about management, definitely there's a gender component to it. When you talk about tourism development planning, there's a gender component to it. When you talk about creating a creative guild, there's definitely a gender component to it. So that level of awareness, parang baby steps, really putting it out there in the curriculum of whatever program you have, whether it mentions gender or not. Again, as echoing what Louis was mentioning earlier, it's a way of life. It's not something that you just, integrate for the sake of it. But if we come to think of it, the more we actually empower women, the more the economy is growing because more and more women could actually participate, right? So in that sense, I honestly and genuinely have seen through my own work for the years that I've been working in the academe, I've seen the power of mentorship and just mere exposure to actually inspire women to feel empowered. So again, I would just like to thank all the women who are joining here. Thank you very much for taking your time to be with us, because I know that the people who are watching us via Zoom or Facebook are actually also inspired to see, oh, women could speak like this, like we could be in these spaces. So there.
Okay. Miss Cleo, you are in a position of leadership. Was it difficult shattering the glass ceiling? Was there something that you had to prove, or is this the first time that the managing director's role is actually given to a lady? Or is it non-gender? It was because you had what it took to be a managing director.
Well, when you're in the position, you don't actually analyze everything.
Yes.
Whether you just put your heart into it.
Mm.
The reality is, when the opportunity opens itself to you for you to become a steward of leadership, and the number of people whose livelihood depends on the directions that you also create. A lot of it is teamwork. A lot of it is actually contributed by masters of their respective disciplines as well. We know that for a fact that running hotels is a very complex business, especially if you have stakeholders that are also looking at the return that you're able to bring in.
Yeah.
I think more of it is really being deliberate in putting heart in what you do. So there's a deeper purpose just beyond the thought of breaking glass ceilings.
Yeah.
In fact, I have to put it forward that sometimes women become barriers as well. When
Oh.
women who decide not to support other women, when it's women who question the capability of women, that happens in our society. And it's not just coming from men. The question of your capability also comes from women. That's why we celebrate women whose hearts are genuinely really supporting other women, because how much more of amazing things can we actually do if the support is genuine, if it's not just lip service, if it's really stemming from the heart, the desire to support whatever background you are coming from, whatever gender you're coming from. It's really the sincerity and the authenticity to support.
Okay,
Because you
great.
know that when a person has the opportunity to showcase what the person is capable of doing with the other person's support, especially women at that, I think
Okay.
we can do amazing things.
Okay, great. Uh, that's a hard reality that you just spoke of when it's not the men who actually puts you down, but women who actually also speak negatively of you. Melanie, you put up a very nice community of artists, Talavera Artists Guild. What triggered this? Was it because you were looking for a space where women can actually showcase their creative arts, or was it because you wanted to empower women? What triggered?
No. What triggered this voice is I've been living abroad for a very long time and I'm back in the Philippines just for a year and a half.
Mm,
So, yung community nila, nakikita ko, nagsusuportahan, magaling. So actually, this is the plan po. This is my retirement plan, but it happened earlier during the pandemic. So,
okay.
and I think I borrowed the millennial word. We are malayo, malayo pa, pero malayo na. So,
Uh-huh.
and nung nakikita ko na may mga story na sinasabi sa akin ng ibang artist, ma'am, nagpe-paint ako talaga, masasali doon, mapapakita ko. Dati, itinatago ko lang yan.
Mm-mm.
Nagpe-paint ako sa bahay, pero nandito lang.
Uh-uh.
And wala silang audience. And yung mga may lakas ng loob na may audience, sometimes, kagaya nga ng sinabi ni Ma'am Cleofe, nanggagaling din sa atin yung parang hindi sinusuportahan yung iba eh. 'Di ba meron tayong friend, "Uy, na-expose ka doon, sali mo naman ako diyan." Hindi ka naman papansinin eh, kasi baka maka-trigger ka sa success niya, 'di ba? Kaya
Mm-mm.
tamang-tama po yung sinasabi niyo Miss Cleofe. So, yun po yung ayokong maging practice eh. 'Di ba? Kasi sa other countries hindi ganoon eh. Kaya nagiging successful sila pag may project sila eh. Sabi ko, so hindi lang ako dito magme-mentor sa paano gumawa ng art. So yung parang foundation din ng attitude ng mga bata. So 'di ba po
Mm-mm.
maganda magsimula na tayo, bata pa sila. So we are guild, we help each other. Yung success ng isa, success nating lahat. 'Di
Okay.
ba? Tsaka minsan ano sila eh, pag hindi na-expose, pag hindi sila napili, hindi nila matanggap na para sa kanila talunan sila eh. Ngayon, hindi na ganun yung attitude nila. Yung gaya nga po ng sinabi ko, ang success ng isa, success din ng lahat. Kasi hindi naman matatandaan yung pangalan niya. Hindi po ba pag may representative tayo, may delegate tayo from Philippines, hindi naman natatandaan yung names nila eh. Ang natatandaan yung countries, di po ba? So, let's
Correct.
start sa maliit. So, and yung attitude na yun, pag nadala nila yun, paglaki nila, siguro magiging inspiration nila and marirepet din nila yan eh sa mga susunod na generation. So yun po
Okay.
kasi ang
Okay, great.
pinagpula ng guild namin.
Thank you. Director Robbie, how do you mentor women leadership to become leaders?
Yeah, actually, it's wrong to say that women need men to be liberated or to be empowered. Because
Gusto ko ba yung
sometimes, yeah, it's us. As we have been, it takes a community, the whole village, to liberate the women. And I always, ang sabi nga nila, ako yung isang tao who is not afraid to show passion. Hindi ako nahihiya to show that when in intense emotion, I can cry. It's because I encountered this poem long time ago. Have you heard of the poem of For Every Woman?
What?
Look for that. For Every Woman by Nancy Smith.
Okay.
If you are a man, read it because
By Nancy Smith.
um,
Yeah.
ang parting words niya uh, just a small ano na for every woman who is tired of having to fake weakness, although she is strong, there is a man who is tired of having to appear strong. So that's the first words. So there's a lot of instances. Then in the end, it says, for every woman who takes a step towards her own liberation, there is a man who rediscovers the way to be free. So when we talk now of women empowerment, actually, men, we are also talking of freeing ourselves from the stereotype that this society has caged us. Parang example, it has been proven in studies, women managers are much better than men. I've read a lot of literature on management that would say that because men have been conditioned, you have to be decisive. Women should be compassionate. Why can't we marry the two?
Yeah.
Then you have a good leader if you can marry the two. Because these are traits that I would say have been trained on us. So mentorship right now, let's go back to mentorship. It takes we have to look for women who will serve as inspiration and who have been liberated and those who have been enlightened on where to go to help other women, but at the same time for men they can still serve as mentors, but it will be a bit sensitive because we have to look for men who have been parang mataas na yung antas ng pag-iisip tungkol sa kababaihan at sa pangangailangan na meron tayong more equal opportunities or mga equity pagdating sa lipunan. So mentorship is a key thing. I've seen some entrepreneurs who have greatly influenced the local communities because introducing new techniques on entrepreneurship and new revenue streams and in terms of the creative industries na naangat nila yung buhay. Minsan ang nakakaangat yung kanina sinabi ko, economically those in the lowlands would have gains. However, if you go back to the communities, you will see that there are also gains in the local rural setting or the community setting. So, nagtutulungan din ang dalawa. We're hoping that the incremental changes in the societies of the local, sa rural, saka sa urban, pagdating sa creative industries, magkakaroon na sila ng realization na women are actually the key thing to develop a community. So
Great thoughts,
lagi nandyan. Yes.
Parang yung women's liberation, 1960s ko pa naririnig. John, you have some thoughts about mentorship and network? How to make sure that you're able to empower women. I guess your study, the policy brief that you made, showed certain disparities in the way that women are actually in the creative world, but how have you managed to mentor them and to rise above the challenges that they have right now?
The answer to that is really to elevate the level playing field, right, of women. But I'd like to believe that mentorship is also gender neutral. But what is really very important is to identify our niche. No, there are traditionally we say that men are perhaps the less um, uh, emotional in the sense that we less have touch to the people, but women have the heart. So perhaps we can also complement with that. But there are also men who have more touch to the people than women. So my point there is that perhaps we just have to identify our niche and then work together collaboratively, because I think what is glaring to us right now is the idea that we need to be a team. No, I'm always say this in my class as well. That there's a reason that the Avengers, no, are put together to go against Thanos. No, I mean the other Avengers can do it. There are more powerful Avengers, but there's a meaning why they have to do it together.
Okay. Great, ano ba tawag yan? Metaphor or simile, something that's very current for the young generation. They see that these new movies that we have actually on the subtle end show that women can do things. On a final question, the theme for this webinar is She Creates, She Connects, Reimagining Women's Empowerment in the Tourism and Creative Industries. In line with this theme, how can women's creativity be more intentionally connected to inclusive economic growth and community empowerment based on the tourism and creative industries? You have any thoughts about this? Your 1 minute, pag tag-end si Boy Abunda, di ba? Palaging sasabi, okay, in 1 minute or less. What is your answer to this theme question on She Creates, She Connects? How can women's creativity be more intentionally connected to inclusive economic growth and community empowerment in tourism and creative industries? Who'd like to start off this question to make sure that we are able to address the policy paper that was presented by Ayla, the insights that you shared earlier on from the perspective of government, academe, the arts, industry. How can you put all of this, the discussions that we had in the last hour, biro mo, 1 hour na pala tayo nag-uusap, come into a 1 minute segment that you want to be your parting words. Who wants to start? Anyone? Who's the
I can
brave
start.
soul? Oh, we have a
start off.
woman to start off the discussion. Okay, Miss Cleo, your thoughts on this?
I started my presentation with saying that in the hands of a woman, a destination becomes a story. This is especially true for our travel and hospitality industry. We just need to continuously be deliberate in
Yes.
really putting all our actions together.
Mhm.
We cannot do this every March only. We have to be day on day conscious of how to put forward women's capability in terms of creativity, that they get the platform to be heard, to be seen, appreciated like the back of our hands. It has to be something that we do with intentionality, we do with conscious part of our strategies, so that it doesn't become like a cause that we are rallying for,
Yes. Yeah.
but something that we celebrate and appreciate every single day of our lives.
Oh, that's a very nice parting word. Really, it's deliberate. It has to be a 365-day mindset that we put in our daily agenda. Okay, thank you, Miss Cleo, for the very nice parting. Yeah, Miss
Yes. So,
Ayla.
yes, I'm thinking about that consciously because honestly, I'm just so happy that, we made this from a concept note to a reality. Because I'm grateful for the team that we have who actually made this happen. So from PIDS and AIM, so we thought of this a lot, this concept note, and now seeing it and you asking me in 1 minute, in a 1 minute, thing, how can we put it together? So I think with the theme, She Creates and She Connects, right? So your question is about how do we ensure women's creativity translates to something outside of it. So I think the task is to ensure that women's creativity is not just seen as a decoration. Because when we talk about creativity, right, we see it as something non-essential, that it's like a supplementary to something bigger. But now, from the presentation down to the panel discussion, we see that women's creativity is not just a decoration. It's actually a foundation to tourism and the creative sector, right? So now, when we see it that way, we see it as something valuable, even more valuable, because we see it as a foundation of something, and hence, we know that it shapes something as well. So I think the challenge now is to make sure that whatever women create, they actually create it for themselves. That they create it with all honesty, not because it's what the society wants it to be, not because what gender stereotypes wants it to be, because we're expected to draw flowers and rainbows instead of robots and cars, right? But because that's actually how we genuinely feel. And I guess I cannot go on in this parting word without saying that this entire idea is really about pushing forward women's visibility, that we're not just here for numbers. We're actually pushing for the quality of involvement that women has on both tourism and creative industry. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's self-love after all.
Yes.
You have to push yourself. It's nobody else's business. Melanie, your thoughts?
So my thoughts for we're here, we explore as an artist different forms of arts and collaborate with the others so we can build a community, not just by like what Sir John Lewis said before, not just by leveling up and also by moving forward kung ano man po yung mga expertise natin.
Great thoughts. Talagang ang mga babae ang ganda mga ano. Let's see now. I'm not gonna look at gender, but unfortunately, the women have spoken. Let us see what the men will say. John, you have your hand raised now?
I think this is the most difficult question in the but I would say that all men are raised by a woman, no? So I would say that I hope my mama is happy, is proud that I'm participating on this. But what I'm just going to say perhaps is that in all the things that we do, no, we work together, no, side by side, because there are many things we see on Facebook that women should be ahead or women should be at the back of men. But the answer is we should be side by side in this, no, in all the things that we do, we have to work it together.
Okay, nice. Women are equal with men. There's no gender really. What we have to make sure is we do the best that we can do. And the final note will come from Director Robbie.
Kakatakot naman, final note. Anyway, I'm the tourism guy here. So tourism is actually a platform where actually we can do things for women. And digitalization is a strategy being used by tourism to actually propagate ideas, to influence people, and at the same time showcase our culture. And we know that the women sector of our society, you lead in most of the creative industries, if not all of the creative industries. You also lead in most, if not all, of our tourism industries. Itong mga sectors natin. So therefore, tourism, I can see, is a game changer that if we can harness it, it can actually change society as we have been doing for the past how many years. We've been contributing a lot of job generation, helping local communities, far-flung communities in the rural areas, and even in the economic levels. Ang sabi ko nga, tourism, we can provide jobs from those who did not even go to school or graduate elementary, up to those who have had their PhD degrees. There is a job for you within the tourism industry. So we in the tourism sector can empower and will empower women, because when we empower women, we can change society. That is in the political, the cultural, and the economic levels. And it is always said that in tourism, we change lives. But today, we have demonstrated, we have discussed that we do not only change lives, we particularly empower women, and we can change the lives of families, communities, and the whole society.
Great thoughts. Talaga naman. It's not really the gender, it's really the mindset that we have to put out there. Thank you very much for our stage backdrop. I would say it's the thoughts that were shared by Ayla in her paper that provided the discussion point for everyone. Thank you, Director Robbie. Thank you, Miss Cleo. Thank you, Miss Melanie. And thank you, John, for a very nice discussion. We wouldn't have had this discussion very well without our Marites in the audience. And we thank also our audience for their active participation. Send everybody a heart, please. They had a very nice discussion over here. And we want to see you in the succeeding webinars that are going to be put up by PIDS. Thank you very much. And let's give everyone a big round of applause. On behalf of everyone, this is Tina, your moderator for this session. I'd like to pass it now back to Joseph to continue on the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tina, for greatly moderating us with our discussion, and to our panelists. And it's great to note that we are well represented from our leaders, from the government, from a women-led MSME. And so I hope that everyone was able to get their key takeaways. That what lingers in my mind right now is what R.D. Ruby said. He highlighted that Filipino culture is women are leaders and guardians of our culture. With Mito, we saw how it is balanced organization, which other corporation and enterprises can also do. With Sir Loy, that women are drivers of broader economic growth, and that by investing in women is the same as investing to our economy. And with Ms. Mel, we saw how their guild was able to further their operation through the support of various public and private so because and be placed in the spotlight. And so again, we thank you for sharing your thoughts. Hope let's give them a and heart reacts. Okay, so now to formally close our program, may I invite Dr. Philip Arnold Tuanyo, President of the unfortunately, he will not be able to join us live today, but he prepared a video message for us.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. To our co-organizers, the Asian Institute of Management's Dr. Andrew L. Tan Center for Tourism and the Philippine APEC Study Center Network, to Mayor Joy Belmonte for inspiring keynote, to Dr. Ayla Leer Gutierrez for scene-setting presentation, to Ms. Maria Cristina Aquino for skilled moderation, to our distinguished panelists, Director Robert Alabado, Ms. Cleofe Albiso, Professor John Luis Sabal, and Ms. Melanie Reyes-Tuque, and to every participant who joined us this morning from across the country and the different regions. Thank you for making this more than a forum. You have made it a genuine appraisal of what it means to create, connect, and lead in today's Philippine economy. I do apologize for missing this workshop during an important hearing in Congress. Allow me to try to draw the threads of this morning's conversation and to situate them with the body of evidence that PIDS and our partners have steadily been working on women, work, and the creative and tourism sectors. We begin with a discussion of what is at stake. The Philippine creative economy reached a gross value added of 1.94 trillion pesos in 2024, representing 7.3% of GDP and employing 7.51 million workers. This is roughly 15.4% of total employment. Meanwhile, the tourism sector, even as it continues to recover and rebuild towards its promise, remains one of the most women-intensive sectors in the economy. PIDS research on Boracay Island has documented what practitioners have long known. The informal tourism sector in key Philippine destinations is primarily women-dominated, with women serving as souvenir sellers, food vendors, excursion entrepreneurs, masseuses, and hair braiders. Women in these roles do not occupy the margins of the tourism economy. They are in many respects its connective network. And yet, the study of Philippine women in the creative and tourism industries is one of the persistent tensions between presence and power, between contribution and recognition. The Institute's foundational work on SDG 5 documented what remains true today. Despite the Philippines ranking among the highest in the ASEAN on overall gender indices, improved access to education has not fully translated into commensurate labor force participation. Only about half women, working-age Filipino women, participate in the labor market, compared to 4 in 5 men. An estimated 10.1 million women remain outside the labor force entirely, largely due to unpaid care work. The creative and tourism sectors, for all their openness and dynamism, do not exist outside these structural realities, but rather they exist squarely within them. What is more, when we look at women work in these sectors, we find a concentration in the informal, the seasonal, and the precarious. Research on women's participation in tourism areas across Metro Manila, Cebu, and Palawan found that while women exhibited notable psychological and political empowerment through their work in tourism, economic and social empowerment remains uneven, constrained by seasonal employment, gender stereotypes, and limited access to skill, training, and financial services. The IPIDS study in Boracay, as mentioned earlier, further found that women informal tourism workers express a strong desire to transition into the formal economy for the security it provides, but structural barriers such as limited education credentials and absence of gender-responsive legislation and training pathways kept this aspiration out of reach. Across the boardroom and the barangay, across the resort and roadside stalls, the pattern is remarkably consistent. Filipino women who lead management positions in industry tend to cluster in retail, food, and personal service industries, the very industries that form the backbone of tourism and creative MSMEs. Women-owned enterprises represent approximately 60% of businesses name registration in the country, yet most of these enterprises operate in low value-added sectors, with limited access to financing, innovation support, and digital infrastructure. Our survey of innovation activities among Philippine business found that only 33.6% are innovation active, with a significant lower among micro and small enterprises, which is the scale of which the vast majority of women-led creative and tourism businesses thrive. In cultural MSMEs, specifically, the picture is one of resilience layered over fragility. Women artisans and cultural producers from communities such as the Tibuli, the Sama, and the Tagbanwa are the living bearers of intangible cultural heritage that undergirds destination identity across the Philippines. Our institute's research on traditional cultural expressions, MSMEs, has found that these enterprises adopt hybrid production models, blending traditional craftsmanship with newer processes, but facing declining intergenerational interests, limited access to formal training, and fierce competition from mass-produced imports. The enactment of Republic Act 11904, the Philippine Creative Industries Development Act, provides a critically important legislative foundation, but legislation, we know, alone cannot substitute for targeted, gender-responsive implementation. This morning, our panelists offered us 3 important vantage points on how to move from diagnosis to action. Director Alabanda reminded us that government has a role not only as a regulator, but as an architect, that film, sports, media-driven tourism can be intentional spaces for women creatives to tell Philippine stories at a global scale, if we build the partnerships and platforms to make that possible. Ms. Albizo showed us that when private sector integrates cultural programming meaningfully into tourism development, it creates both economic opportunity and recognition for women's creative labor. Professor Sabal offered a development economist perspective to our aspirations that the data caps, the structural barriers, and the informal economy dynamics. We have been discussing the core evidence-based interventions and not just celebrations. And Ms. Reyes grounded these discussions in the lived realities of artists and community leaders, demonstrating how grassroots creative ecosystems, arts education, and local cultural initiatives can empower women, sustain heritage, and build inclusive creative economies beyond urban centers. I want to offer one final thread from PID's most recent work before we close. Probably just days ago, a policy note by Dr. Jose Ramon Albert and colleagues cautioned that the Philippines' high global gender rankings can obscure what authors call second-generation barriers, including institutional practices, workplace cultures, and social norms that contribute to limit women's agency and advancement, even after the formal legal landscape has been largely reformed. These barriers do not announce themselves. They operate through assumptions about who leads creative projects, who control the earnings to tourism enterprise, whose name appears on a business legislation, and whose voice is heard in policy consultations. Addressing them requires precisely the kind of multi-stakeholder, evidence-grounded dialogue that this forum has modeled today. PIDS commits to carrying this work forward. The discussion generated this morning will inform PIDS policy note examining how creativity, culture, tourism, and technology intersect to empower women psychologically, economically, socioculturally, and politically. That note will be grounded in the evidence we built together over years of research, enriched by every insight shared in this room and online today. It is our institutional contribution to ensuring that the momentum this forum has built does not dissipate when the last participant logs off. To every woman who creates with her hands and her mind, who connects communities and cultures through her work, and who leads in ways that our data are still catching up to describe this fully, this forum was for you. And the work that follows it is in your name. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tuanyo, for your closing message. And before we officially close, we are pleased to announce today's raffle winners. Social, merong raffle winners who will be given special tokens as our way of saying thanks for being part of today's event. So from Zoom, we have Miss Elia Joy Villacorta from Central Luzon State University. Ako na rin pala ang dito, yung sound, no? Okay. Also, we have Miss Cecil Espirito from Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Pasig. Ayan, congratulations. Also, we have one from Facebook. It's Net Estrada from Calamba Tourism. Ayan. Congratulations, Miss Elia Joy, Miss Cecil, and Net Estrada. The PIDS tech team will coordinate with you on how to claim your prize. Okay, so don't leave yet, as we have a few reminders. The speakers' presentations will be available at the PIDS website from the link provided in the Zoom chat box and Facebook comments section. So to our Zoom participants, again, please help us improve our events by answering our feedback form through the link provided in the Zoom chat box. The e-certificate of participation will be sent to your email automatically after submitting the completed feedback form. And for our Facebook Live viewers, as mentioned earlier, you can earn your e-certificate through our Replay on Demand feature. So you just have to scan the QR code or click the link in the comments to answer the pop quiz. And please submit it by 10 p.m. tonight to qualify. Again, please submit it by 10 p.m. tonight to qualify. So keep in touch with us as well. Follow PIDS on social media. Also, feel free to visit our websites for more information. And we hope to have you again at our future events. Please visit our webpage. That's www.pids.gov.ph/events to learn the details of our upcoming events and register. Okay, so on behalf of AIM, PIDS, and PACN, we thank all our speakers, panelists, partners, and participants for joining us today. Let us continue working together to ensure that women are not only participants, but leaders in shaping the future of tourism and the creative economy. Magandang tanghali po sa ating lahat, and have a wonderful day ahead.